Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This video is long overdue. We need to talk about the truth behind the COD Next situation. And in order to do that and do it justice, we actually need to go back in time. So I'd like to just cast your mind back to 2013. In 2013, I had under 100,000 subscribers. I was still in school, and I was just trying my best to make good zombies content, right? And I got my first ever invite to an Activision event. I think it was an Extinction preview event, if I recall correctly. I think that was 2013, if my memory serves. So I went to this event, met some Activision staff, met some other UK COD creators. Really cool opportunity. And from there to 2015, I went to several other events and got to know the team and know the other creators a little better, and my relationship with them deepened. Then in 2015, a few very big things happened. Black Ops 3 came out while I was on about 100,000 subscribers, and I also went off to university to study physics at the exact same time. What that meant is that I had a lot of growing up to do at uni, but my content also was blossoming because Black Ops 3 was so well suited to me. And so at the start of that degree, I had 100k subs. By the end of my degree, my content was a lot better. I had achieved a lot more viewership. I'd made my Dirt Eisendrache Easter egg guides, like all that good stuff, all happened in those years. I went way past 1 million subscribers, and my relationship with Activision deepened greatly as well. A lot of that was due to Jason Blundell. So I recall at the Gamescom event in the build-up to Black Ops 3, he was there, and I met him for the first time, and it was amazing. And I said to Jason, I've got so much I want to tell you from the zombies community. I've got a little book of information. I want to bring it to you, and I want to make all this feedback possible and all this stuff. Jason was like, I'm so down. We went to a hotel restaurant and stayed there until 6 a.m. talking about zombies. The Activision PR guy passed out in his chair because Jason and I were yapping so much about Mob of the Dead and stuff like that. It really showed me that he cared. And it really showed me that he was a good steward for the direction of zombies overall. I then went to the Shadows of Evil capture event that year and met Craig Houston. And Craig came up to me personally and said, Milo, the videos that you were making around the Origins release, when you were making content about the story, was really important to me over the years it's been since then in staying on course and knowing that there's people out there that want this crazy story. Like, he specifically cited one of my videos and he was like, that video was so good. And it really helped us stay on a course towards the craziness they had planned for Black Ops 3. So I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. The people making the game I love so much like my work as well. There is mutual respect there, and we are broadening our relationship, our working relationship, and Activision also is paying more attention to me and saying, yeah, Milo, we're going to invite you to capture events for Black Ops 3, and we're going to get you involved in E3 one of these years, and all those sorts of things. Let's fast forward a few years. 2019 rolls around, actually the end of 2018, and Black Ops 4 launches. In the build-up to Black Ops 4, I had played the game. I played it at an early preview event, and we then obviously got the launch of the game itself, and it was very broken. And I made clear that I felt like there was a problem with the communication from Treyarch, and I wanted to see that improve because they were not addressing the fact that the game was just broken, straight up. Fast forward several months, and I get invited to an Ancient Evil event. So this is the following year. And then I'm mysteriously uninvited from the event. And I'm like, that's very weird. That's never happened before. At that event, after the event's passed and I've not gone, I have a meeting with Activision, and I'm told that I'm blacklisted. And I'm given a couple of reasons why, and they've basically said that they didn't like my critique in various areas, and they were not going to work with me anymore. And I was like, whoa, this is wild. Because blacklisting me in this way does a few things. One is I'd used the Activision events over the years as a means to keep in touch with a lot of friends in the UK creator scene and the community. And by being blacklisted, I was not going to be invited to those events. I wasn't going to be invited to this or that launch. I wasn't going to be invited to this or that capture event. I wouldn't be involved. And so I lost a lot of contact time with the UK creator scene because I was so entrenched in zombies, and yet I wasn't able to participate in all these things that they were participating in. It was weirdly alienating in that way. I also, obviously, stopped getting access to things early. If there was early, I would give a random example, Modern Warfare 3 zombies footage, I was not involved. There was early capture for this, that, or the other, I was not involved. There were one or two weird exceptions to this. Like, I got invited to one creator call randomly, and I think, honestly, it was a mistake, because it then just didn't happen ever again. But I got invited to one creator call for the launch of the Outbreak Easter egg in, like, February, what would that have been? 2021, I think? But other than that, I was held outside of the Activision proceedings on things. And my perspective on it was, well, they're not working with me, but I still love zombies. I'm still going to cover zombies as best I can. And not being in the cool kids club need not affect me if I'm just doing my normal stuff at launch and things like that anyway. So I just kept going. I was just like, you know what? I'm not doing this for a kiss on the forehead from Activision. I'm doing this because I love it, so it doesn't matter. So for several years, I was blacklisted. And then, eventually, I was contacted by Activision, and they said, let's readdress our relationship. And I went, that might be nice. Because in that time, my channel had grown significantly, and I was now one of the biggest zombies content creators in the community. And I was still blacklisted, and it was like, this is kind of odd. So I spoke to them, and I was like, okay, I'll hear you out. Let's see where this might go. And they started to give me some olive branches, I think, to work me back into the fold. So, for example, I got to play Black Ops 6 early. Now, despite the fact that I was invited to that event, I still felt like I, as MrRoflWaffles, and I, as recently unblacklisted MrRoflWaffles, was being kept a special eye on. And that felt a bit funky to me. And I'm not sure if this is actually true. It might just be that this is how the events are for everyone else. But there is a degree of adversarial supervision when I'm at Activision events that I never, ever experience at any other publisher events ever. And I work with all the main publishers. I've worked extensively with Ubisoft. I've worked extensively with EA. I've done stuff with all of them. Kind of apart from Nintendo. Need to work that one out. But I've worked with all these publishers, and I've done so many events and so many E3s and Gamescoms and this and that. There's always just a vibe at these Activision events that has in the last few years where I've been being invited to things, just sort of been something I've noticed, right? It's just something I've noticed. And so I did the Black Ops 6 early preview event. And I felt like, this is kind of weird. The way that they've structured this isn't great for zombies coverage, so I'm sort of going to hold my tongue on what I think of it all, and we're just going to go forward. And there were obviously a lot of things happening that month. If you guys can recall, it was a very busy time for me as a content creator. I was uploading a lot of videos that you guys might remember. I can't really remember what was going on there, but I think you guys might remember. And then Black Ops 6 came out, and I nailed my content, I think, in such a big way and to such a degree that we got more views than I think anyone is ever going to get, just candidly, in a 3-month period in Zombies ever again. I think it was a perfect storm. I think that the game was just really in a great place. I think that my team were just all kicking ass. They were at the top of their game. I was really firing on all cylinders. We just did a great job. A couple 100 million views in 3 months on Zombies content is unheard of. It's just unheard of. And so we crushed it. We really crushed it. And I wouldn't be surprised if you compared my numbers there to any other COD creator on the planet. I don't know if anyone else was doing hundreds of millions of views in that 3-month period on COD alone. I don't know. It was a lot of views. It was a lot of views. So we really nailed it there. Similarly, I was not invited to COD Next last year for Black Ops 6 coverage. They never invited me. And yet, my stream, as an example, had more concurrent viewers than all the other Zombies guys. I wasn't even at the event. But we did as good a show as we could. And I covered it as effectively as I could. And I think it resonated with you guys. And then we made some content immediately afterwards, Liberty Balls, if you guys remember that. And that also resonated with you guys in a really big way. And we were just cooking. We were cooking. And there was a lot of synergy with the Zombies community's sort of opinions on things and thoughts on things and where my head was at with things. And it was all working out really well. So I think based on that, I've become a bit harder for Activision to ignore. And the perspective that I have is that it makes a great deal of sense for Activision and I to work closely with one another because I have a huge amount to say about Zombies and a huge amount to say about how Activision interfaces with Zombies and with its creators and all sorts. I am also a veteran content creator, and that is not an egotistical statement. It is just objective fact. I've been doing this full time for longer than a lot of content creators have been making content at all. I'm just an old man in the COD scene. And I think that there is a great deal of value for Activision to gain from my feedback and my presence in the scene. I really, truly believe that. However, there's this kind of weird element for me, which is that it doesn't necessarily actually benefit me to be involved with Activision a lot of the time. Because, for example, as we've seen with Black Ops 7, with the preview event that I went to for Black Ops 7 Zombies, it kind of interrupted some of my content output because they then enforced this embargo where I wasn't able to talk about certain things, so I wasn't able to speculate in the way that I normally would. And so it took some of the Zombies fan in me away from the conversation and made my job harder because I got the early access. And I knew this was going to happen, and I flagged it to them in advance. And I said, I don't know if I necessarily want to go to your event. I don't know if I necessarily want to go to Treyarch, because it's actually going to impede me from doing my job. It's not going to make it easier. And that seems weird to me. Shouldn't we be constructing a relationship where Activision's efforts and my efforts are mutually beneficial? Right? Again, there's this kind of confusing and confounding underlying tension, perhaps you could say, in the relationship there, which I was very aware of and am very aware of. Similarly, if Activision are working with a given creator, there's a lot of people out there that make the argument that those creators very quickly just become shills, right? And I think that you guys know, and don't need any convincing, I'm the last person that's going to shill for Activision. I've been blacklisted, bro. Like, at the end of the day, you know that I'm being honest every day of the week when it comes to my actual opinions about zombies, because I have literally no upside in holding those opinions back. Literally none. What's worked for me and what has grown my voice in the zombies community is me being candid with you guys, and you guys having grown up with me for all these years, and you guys having seen the consistency of my character in that time. It makes zero sense for me to turn around at Vanguard launch and be like, I'm loving this. Obviously not, right? So, with all of that stuff in mind, this year, I was invited to COD Next. And I said no. And I said no for several reasons. I'm going to go through a couple of those now. At face value, it sounds really appealing. Free trip to Vegas, baby. That sounds appealing, right? Sounds like a great way to get some enthusiastic creators to have a nice time. Sounds awesome, right? Similarly, opportunity to see all those friends that I was alienated from a little bit by being blacklisted for all those years, right? Awesome opportunity to network with those people, etc. Opportunity to play the game a bit more. Opportunity to stream it, right? For however long it's going to be, 30 minutes of zombies coverage or whatever the slot ends up being for the next stream. Like, all of these things are incentives that sound really positive for a creator like me, but for me personally, I have to weigh the hidden cost of blindly saying yes to an event like that. One of those costs, for example, is very similar to that preview event. It's the embargo stuff. It's the fact that it isn't really designed well for zombies. It's getting in the way of me doing my job properly and being maximally honest with you guys about what I actually think about all this stuff. Similarly, another thing that Activision do fairly frequently is they'll do an event like that, but it will be suboptimally executed compared to what other publishers do in making affordances for their content creators. So a great example of this for Next is that if I was going to Next, I would be there on the 30th. I would then have to fly home, presumably either the night of the 30th, which would be pretty grueling to go from all of that streaming that day and straight onto a flight that evening and stress about all that, or the next day, right? If I fly home on the 1st, I would get home on the 2nd, right? Bear in mind, like, that trip back to the UK is not short, right? So I would get home from Vegas on the 2nd, and what happens on 2nd? It's the zombies beta. So, again, it's a scenario where this is actually really not great timing for me to be able to do my job as best as I possibly can. And if something happens during Next that is a really big deal that I need to talk about immediately, am I having to get a whiteboard into the hotel room in Vegas? Or am I just going to be best off making that content right here at home? You know what I mean? So there's lots of reasons why it's potentially just not actually a good move for me and my business, right? I'm also a little sick, but that was actually not part of the conversation at all. And then there's also the element of the fact that, like I said, these other publishers that I work with regularly do so many different things to ensure that an event like this is mutually beneficial for both the creator and for the publisher and the studio in question, right? So for example, I was at an EA Battlefield 6 global reveal event during the summer, and it was not a free event. I was paid, right? And what that means is not, oh, I walk away with a massive paycheck, I'm going to shill the game now. But it means I can afford to pay my team, of whom I have several people that I need to be able to pay. I can pay them to cover for me while I'm away. So, for example, Joey Conway, my right-hand man, my creative partner, who I've been working with for so long now, Joe needs payment. It's his job, right? His money doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from my bank account. And if I'm going to be away, not making content for like a week because I'm doing an EA event, it's actually really valuable to have some kind of payment coming in from the event so that while we're not getting paid for the normal content that we're making with me at home, with me taking out the equation, Joe still has money in the coffers to be paid. You know what I mean? So there's those sorts of considerations too. There's things like the flexibility on timing. There's things like extensions or reductions of hotel rooms, or EA does a thing always where they make sure that you've got plenty of like Uber vouchers and stuff like that, just so that like I'm not going to an event and then paying $500 in Ubers over the course of 4 days because I'm trying to go back and forth to make my content, right? Whereas Activision just hasn't really caught up with a lot of those practices in my current experience. Maybe I've just not seen enough of their recent events because I've not been invited to many of them. But there are several things like that that just mean that when I'm evaluating COD Next, it sort of feels like a poison pill, or at least it did this year, where there was a benefit being presented to me of early access, but there were all these costs in the background, and chief among those, and most important to me among those, was my integrity of my opinion and honesty of my opinion and feeling of being included without the underlying tension and supervision, unique supervision perhaps, that seems to come with me going to these sorts of events. It happened at the Black Ops 7 preview event. I'm not going to go into details, but there was a moment there where I was like, oh, this is a vibe right now that I do not experience with any other publisher ever. There was a moment like it during the Black Ops 6 preview event last year, where a maybe 3-minute conversation was just crazy uncomfortable for me. And I was like, this is not how typically I interact with other publishers. It's just an Activision thing. And it's not something that I'm super comfortable with. So this is all to say, I really want to flesh out and deepen my relationship with Activision. I really do. Because in the years where I was closest with Activision, they were also the years where I was closest with people like Jason Blundell. And they were also the years where I felt like my voice actually mattered. And your voices could flow through me as a mouthpiece with my little blue book to bring to someone like Jason Blundell, and I would feel like I was being heard. And it's a feeling that I haven't really felt for several years now. And it's unfortunate because that's obviously the best case scenario, right? As much as the general public overall is very negative towards Activision and anti-Activision, it absolutely makes sense for me to deepen my relationship with them and to be on the best possible terms, right? And I wanted to say yes to Next as a thing to be like, yeah, let's work together now. Let's do it. Just like we did with the preview event. Let's get in there. Let's make some awesome content. Let's hype up zombies. Woo, right? But I just felt like there was risk with this particular event with some of my integrity and honesty of opinion being impeded, perhaps. It's not even a guarantee. It's just that I was just wary of it. And so I said no. It's crazy. It's a crazy timeline. The last several years, I've been not invited every year. And every year I've been like, this is a slap in the face, bro. And then I'm invited and I'm like, yeah, I'm good. But this felt like the decision that aligned me most with my values. And so it's the decision I made. Now, what I'm hopeful for is that I'm hopeful there's another Black Ops 7 event in a month, and it's something that I can look at and evaluate and go, this looks awesome. This actually really benefits the zombies community, benefits my coverage, benefits all parties, benefits Activision, means that we can be more heard, da-da-da-da-da. It's this panacea, amazing golden ticket event, right? And I'd absolutely say yes to that. And if COD next year is something I'm invited to, and I've spoken to the team and we've talked about it, and I'm like super comfy and I'm like, let's go, then I'll go. Absolutely. Like, this is not me saying I will never go to an Activision event ever again. I want to be very clear, right? This is just me saying it doesn't feel like, to me, this particular event is actually beneficial for the creator and for the community, right? In the way that I think it should be. And therefore, I don't think it's necessarily something that I can put my name behind. That's where my head was at for it. And I also think that other creators are starting to feel the same way. Because at the the Battlefield 6 global reveal event, I spoke to a ton of creators there, and they were like, yeah, candidly, the way that we interface with Activision is much more of an antagonistic relationship compared to how we interface with an EA for Battlefield or whatever. Like, they were sharing their opinions with me, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's not just me. Like, it's just that different publishers work differently, and those creator relations really make a difference, like a massive difference. Because if I've got a whole team on the line, right, I need to be able to make tactical decisions about, like, what game am I going to cover this month or this next 6 months or what have you. And if I don't feel super welcomed by a publisher, makes it a little bit more difficult to continue being like, yeah, that's the one I should keep choosing, right? So I spoke to those creators at the Battlefield 6 event, and they agreed, yeah, this year, Next feels like it's got competition from Battlefield 6. It's got competition from these other studios, and it isn't set up really in a way to make those creators win to the extent that it could be with some changes. So I'm not alone in thinking this. And I wanted to get this video out a while ago, but like this whole video, bro, I've been struggling not to cough. Like, I've been fighting it with all my might. That's why I keep pausing, because my cough is so bad right now. So that's got in the way, and I've been so busy. And then there's been the surprise beta news, and then the zombies reveal week got pushed back, and it was just like, pfft. So I'm finally getting it done now. But I hope you guys can understand my perspective here. And I also really hope that this isn't like a witch hunty moment at all for anyone. Because at the end of the day, Activision are trying their best. They really are. And especially my UK contacts at Activision, who I speak to the most. I very rarely speak to the sort of other regions, right? For obvious reasons. But like the UK contacts that I speak to regularly, I can really tell that they are trying their absolute hardest to make things work mutually beneficially. I can really see it. So it's not like I'm trying to sort of say Activision is all rotten inside and out, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in spite of those best efforts by so many people at that company, it still feels like MrRoflWaffles is not really a friend. It just does. And it feels like my morals just didn't quite align with the way that the event was structured, or I worried that surprise things might happen, which would be out of my control, which I would then not be super comfortable with while there. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do my thing at home. I'm going to cover it. I am still so excited for Black Ops 7. This isn't me saying I don't want to cover Black Ops 7. This isn't me saying I'm going to be busy with another game that day. I am here to do my normal thing. I'm here to make my no-nonsense guides. I'm here to make my whiteboard videos. I'm enthusiastic about it all. It was just a fiddly decision for this particular event. I hope you guys can understand. I did this with you in mind, because I think it's what's best for you as well. So thanks for being here. I've had to be quite intentionally vague at points in this video, and some of it might be a bit confusing as a result of that. I've tried my best, though. Sorry if it's been a bit unclear. This is obviously a weird video to be making because I'm talking about my personal relationship with a company on the internet publicly. I'm being extremely transparent here. And that's weird. People don't normally do this. But again, I made this decision with you guys in mind. And so it feels like making this video is the right move. And to be honest, like, I think that the Activision UK team would want me to be able to be candid about this stuff too. They're good people. They are good people. So I will not be at COD Next, but I will be giving out beta codes tomorrow on stream. So we've got that. And I will be covering COD Next fully from home, just without any sponsorship, Activision, NDA, embargo, agreements. I'm just going to cover the game tomorrow to my fullest extent. So thanks for watching, folks. I'll see you in the stream. I'll be live on YouTube and Twitch. Bye for now.